Welcome to Growth Architects, a podcast for tech entrepreneurs, product innovators, and marketing strategists. Whether you're searching for product market fit, exploring new growth channels, or trying to avoid common startup pitfall, this is where you'll find proven strategies to fuel your success. And now, let's get started. Welcome, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Growth Architects. My guest today is Elliot Lyons. Apart from being a very good friend of mine, Elliot is an expert in content creation. With him today, we're going to discuss everything about content for SMEs. Elliot, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be on your podcast, finally.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for the ones who don't know it, Elliot has been hosting podcasts himself. He has a lot of experience there. So with him today, we're really going to discuss about all the ins and outs of content creation for smaller companies who are interested in applying some of the tactics to grow their brand. Elliot, but before we dive deep into that, would you like to tell the ones who don't know you more about yourself and your background?
Sure. I guess I have a little bit of interesting background for marketing and content creation, or maybe not.
Absolutely. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here, right?
Right. So my background's in philosophy and theology. So those are my sort of academic subjects that I studied. But within those two things, they have very strong, obviously, imagination and storytelling components, right? So after looking for a job, after graduating with 2 master's degrees and looking for jobs, I thought, like, how can I apply these skills without doing a PhD, of course, in the real world? And I was like, oh, I'm pretty good at writing, and writing's a key component in storytelling. So eventually I got into content creation, and I ended up doing this in financial services, of all places, a place that I thought I'd never be. And I've been there for almost 10 years doing content creation and management and strategy and financial services here in the Netherlands. So that's a little bit about my background, and also like a nice little connection between kind of like what I did and what I was interested in, and kind of how I apply that to what I actually earn money with instead of spend it on very expensive education.
I guess someone could see the irony of, after having studied God, say them working for money, which is probably the God of our society, right?
Actually, but the funny thing is, I'm actually reading this interesting book called Debt, The First 5,000 Years by David Graeber. He's an anthropologist. And a lot of the crux of that is actually the relationship between religion and God and money and debt. And actually, it's a pretty solid connection there. So it makes a lot of sense, to be honest. If you dig into the weeds of money and guilt, hold, guilt, debt, sin, it's all in there, actually. So it does make a lot of sense. I don't use it in my daily life. It's just an intellectual curiosity, but it's there. The connection's there. So.
Well, actually, one of the things that I'm curious of, I'm very curious about everyone who has a very different background from what they ended up doing. Myself, I have a bit of the same story. So I studied law, and then I'm into design and marketing. What would you say that you have learned, or like how have your previous studies enriched your background and allow you to operate on a different level, if anything?
That's a really good question. I think because basically all the 2 studies are basically just like different thought systems, right? And understanding those and learning those and applying those. And marketing's kind of the same thing, or specifically like content creation, right? Whether you're doing social media on LinkedIn, there's a way to approach that, of course, depending on the goals. There's like a system, if you would call it, where you're writing like a thought leader blog for like the FT or Financial Times or Reuters. There's certain systems and certain standards that go along with those. So it's just applying different ways of thinking and doing things to the task at hand. That's the basic thing.
And it gives you perhaps a bit of lateral thinking, right? Which is always handy in this kind of things.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
Well, Elliot, then we come more closely to your marketing background, right? And why don't you tell us more about the different things that you've been doing and how you've been helping the companies that you work with to be more successful and more visible with marketing?
Okay. Oh, that's a good question, because visibility is king nowadays, especially since there's so much, everyone's online. It's a necessity. Okay, so I think the cool thing about my sort of trajectory is I've worked for like in-house for companies as well as for like PR agencies. So you get two kind of different ends of the sort of the sort of viewpoints on content creation or marketing being in those things. And I'd say the biggest difference between being in-house and being on the PR, the agency side, as we call it, is on the agency side, I learned a lot about how to actually do marketing more than I did being in-house. And I learned that because on the agency side, you have to kind of, because we're not in-house, you have to, you have to pitch, you have to do a proposal, you have to do like a fact finding phase, and then you can get to execution. So that laid the foundation for me to actually be a better marketer or content creator, because it kind of let me get to know like the fundamentals of creation. And it actually begins way before you kind of type or you shoot or you put anything out into the actual world. So I think that's the.
Yeah, I agree with that. Plus, I mean, when you work at an agency, like for example, it has been my experience in the last few years with Sparker, you see so many things so rapidly. So you work with like multiple clients, actually always with multiple clients at the same
Yes.
time. And that really allows you to make experience with different things, see different ways of different problems, and also try to have to think of a creative solution for each one of these problems. So you really do have to grow faster. And sometimes one of the things that you see is that one solution that you apply in one scenario also works for a different scenario.
100%. I think especially because I was at H for 4 years, so not a long time, but like also not nothing. And you definitely see patterns in sort of companies and also like outcomes that they desire, right? And then you can sometimes they are definitely interchangeable, and it just saves you time. But you need to see a lot of clients and talk to a lot of people, at least in my experience, to get there. But also treat every client as unique because they are, right? It may not be the same. It's very similar. You're like, oh, I can just apply it, but no, it's a little bit different, right?
No, yeah, absolutely.
You have clients that like Web3, they want both. They both want like social media, but like one's an event and one's one's a fund, right? An investment fund. And those are they're same kind of category of thing, but different audiences. So you need to tweak a lot. That's what I found out. There's like fine tuning the proposal to meet the exact client, but you can have a general outline or some sort of idea of what they need. But that's also the danger, I think. It's like, oh no, I've heard this before. And then you shut off and then you miss what you actually need to tailor the proposal or to actually fulfill the client's needs, of whether that's like, it's usually visibility and growth, whether that's like, eyeballs and engagement or, warm leads for the salespeople.
And
so I think
Elliot,
that's
yeah, from your experience, when you look at the financial industry, what big trends have you seen when it comes to marketing and visibility for these companies in the last few years?
one of the ones I've seen over the past, like, I think 7 is, since like I'm kind of like by trade a copywriter, so I love words. One of the things, like when I began, things were very like super formal in a sense in terms of tone. And now they're like, everything's getting more human, as I would say. It's getting less formal, more sort of less jargon, and more sort of like more conversational, not completely conversational, but going that way. And you see that even in like the consultancies like BCG and McKinsey, they're even going that way as well. So that's also nice to make things more understandable and comprehensible to sort of normal people. That's something that I really like.
So what you see is that also an industry which is very traditional, like the financial industry, right, has abandoned a bit this jargon of like, we know something you guys don't know, and has become very relatable. And that has, I guess that
they're trying to. I mean, just to go like look at the challenger banks and like the B2C. Like I saw a Revolut ad. I was watching something on YouTube with my girlfriend the other day, and like she saw a Revolut ad, and she's like, "What is this? Is this like a clothes thing?" And I'm like, "No, it's a bank." Like it's they're really getting in there, but that's B2C. But even in B2B stuff, which is most of the things I do in financial services, is B2B. Even there, especially there, we're dropping jargon because the person that's buying the service, whether I have a lot of payments experience, whether it's like payments, they may not be like the payments. They're probably not the payments expert, right? So you have to talk to them, not like, I've been in payments for 20 years and I can just give them a bunch of like, the 3-letter jargon and then just throw it at them. It's like, no, just talk to them like you're talking to an intelligent adult. And
Got
that's
it.
always something you need to keep in mind, or I keep in mind when
And do you
building.
say this is really a trend for the whole financial industry? So also, for example, investment manager or financial advisor, or is it more for B2C institutions?
B2C, but also, okay, that's actually a good question. Because I think there's like I haven't done much I haven't done basically any B2C, but from what I see from B2C, it's very
For B2C,
conversational.
it's actually even more, perhaps, right?
Yeah, but B2B is also just short conversational. Like get rid of the jargon for all the B2B payment stuff I had. But I also at the agency did a lot of like thought leadership for sort of like wealth and asset management. And that's a bit trickier there, right? For me, it's a bit trickier because it really for me depended on like the audience. Because I wrote a bunch of stuff for Reuters and the
Hmm.
regulatory intelligence, and that's obviously that's all paywalled and kind of technical
Hmm. Yeah,
more
I
than
guess that's a big question for a lot of people, right? Because I think that a lot of people, including like ourselves, marketers, and perhaps business owners even more, they kind of see like a colloquial tone as opposed to being a thought leader, right? So it's more
Mhm,
like the more complex words I use, the more I am an expert of what I'm saying, which I
mhm.
mean, I absolutely don't think it's true, but how do you make sure that, say, s- how do you make sure that you communicate that you're an expert of the things that you're saying and also have a colloquial tone? How do the two things go hand in hand?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd say it always begins, and this is funny, it always begins on sort of what you're trying to say and what story you're trying to bring across about your company. Because you companies have personalities, right? And tones go along with those personalities. And especially for, you say, asset and wealth management, with the big shift in sort of like, the great wealth transfer, where I mean, you're a millennial too, I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
Us in Generation Z, not me particularly, like we're going to inherit like trillions, right? So that completely changes wealth advisory and the way they need to approach these new sort of like billionaires and like these highly wealthy people, right? We're more conversational. We want you to actually get to know us. So the way you write to us is more similar to Revolut than it is like, I don't know, something from the 50s, right?
Got it. So what I'm hearing from you is saying that as us millennials are becoming the customer of, well, this kind of institutions, and we are also becoming like decision makers and budget holders,
Yeah,
actually what you need is to make sure that you talk to millennials more and more as they want to be talked to, which is a
absolutely.
friendly and approachable tone. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we're used to too,
Yeah.
And I think that's
Absolutely.
audience part's really key. So how do you do that, right? I mean, I guess especially in asset and wealth management, a lot of these people, these advisors and managers are getting older, right? They're like our parents' age. They're 60s, so they're retiring, but like there is a big gap in sort of like replacing them. Like there's a gap and you need that continuity within your organization when it comes to at least asset and wealth management. But for
Cool.
other things like B2B payments, I'm kind of doing right now, it's just I mean for me it's easy because I'm kind of in this group, but I try as much as possible to take out jargon as a tip.
Yeah,
Whatever it
we are
is.
in front of the target group that we write or make marketing for, right? So that comes
Right.
to
I mean, take out all the jargon.
take out all the jargon.
Or
That's a good one.
most of the, if it's something you need to usually explain, just kind of say that.
Got it. And Elliot, so because we were talking about trends before and we kind of like dive deep into this
Mhm.
one, is there anything else that you're saying when it comes to digital market or just in general marketing trends for the financial world?
For the financial world. For me, I'll stick to B2B stuff. Obviously, B2B right now is the sort of increased visibility on social. Like the B2B stuff is getting more in terms of approach, like consumer brands, right? You have your Instagram, you have your LinkedIn, you have like outdoor advertisements. Like like to me, that's another trend, the B2B, B2C ification of B.
Got it. So
You know,
the line between the two is really like blurring more and more?
For me, it is. That's what it feels like. And I guess also, I guess we have to talk about this since we're on here. You may know what I'm going to say is the integration of AI into workflows and content creation. I think that's a thing that's here to say and trying to figure out how to, because I mean, people are finding like they're using Chat GPT as search right now. So it's kind of, that's a completely new thing that we have to deal with in the last couple of years. Like how is my comfortable company findable in Chat GPT or whatever, Claude or whatever you use, Perplexity, whatever you're using. So that's another trend on the sort of, I guess, the customer side and also for us because we have to respond to that, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you mentioned something interesting because that's really now one of the questions for a lot of people that do content, right? Before it was about a lot about, say, being visible on search engines. So roughly for any company, 40 to 60% of traffic
Yeah.
is organic. Whereas now it seems that things are shifting. So a lot of companies are like, does it even make sense anymore to create content for SEO? What's your point of view on that?
I'd say yes, but now there's like the GSEO now that includes the AI, I think. I would say I'm not an SEO expert, but I would say it's definitely still relevant to include SEO into your workflow as a content person. Because they're at least the companies I've worked with in the last few months have been really up on all the AI development, and they have nice workflows to kind of start to position your website for like an AI based world. So I think it's definitely still relevant for companies.
Got
And
it.
even just basic things like, on your website, like content hierarchy and, the connection of different pages between your website, like that's all that all still matters for your findability, right? And relevance of content that you have on each page. And that's kind of a big part of that is the SEO. So that's still extremely relevant. Maybe
And
not
it's
in the
indeed
same way it was
something
10 years ago.
And it's indeed something that you hear also from everyone who's doing SEO. So SEO is still there. It has changed a little bit and it's changing. So more and more companies need to optimize also for traffic that comes from AI.
Yes.
So Perplexity or ChatGPT. But in essence, this bots or this systems use exactly the same system that Google would use to find, index your website and get information from it. So say the technique of it hasn't changed.
I don't
What
think
has
so. No.
changed is the fact that probably people will not that land on your website. So you need to make sure that you also have a strategy to ultimately then collect and convey people there.
Yeah, I mean, landing pages are great, for that reason. Still a great idea, even now, like the tactic. Landing pages are good.
Because that one of the things that I'm curious to know, like obviously in the industry where you've been working, there's a lot of like thought leadership, right? So really the idea that a lot of people that come on your website will not be ready to buy from you on their first visit. So the customer journey needs to be made of many different touch points.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of seems conflicting with the idea of like AI, which offers kind of a gated access to your content. So I think it's then probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, even more important that when someone lands on your website, you kind of have something engaging to kind of keep them having conversation with you. What can you tell us about, say, thought leadership in your industry, and what do successful companies do?
Okay. Oh, that was a. I'll do it with the thought leadership, and then I guess we can go back to the AI, the world, the content in the world of AI, because that's always, of course, interesting because no one knows what's going to happen with this. So thought leadership was important, especially for like smaller companies to have in their thought leadership. Is I'd say thought leadership's like something you build on something else, right? And that something else is your overall web presence. So like I'd say get your website, tip top, hire someone for SEO to do that to make sure everything's okay there. And also presence on social media. So consistency in posting, right? And then on top of that, you can build thought leadership, or into that, you can build thought leadership. So it's like the second thing once you have like a good foundation website, your social channels are set up, and then you can go do thought leadership. And you can do that in a lot of ways. You can write stuff on your blog or write your own blog, your own company's blog. You can go on other people's podcasts, which is a really great alternative to starting your own is way cheaper, and people in all these companies, organizations already have reach, and you can also hire PR. Sorry, plugging PR agencies. You can also hire a PR agency to, write the leadership content, with you. Of course, you choose the topics, and they pitch it to, relevant publications. They'll even write it for you. That was one of my big jobs, is writing thought leadership content. So that's also another thing. Then you can get your article in Reuters, FT or FDay over here, or Sifted. There's a lot of great content that you can actually paid branded content. You can go to like a fintech or financial services like platform like Sifted, Finextra, Papers. You can actually like pay them to post content, and they'll write it and they'll put it in a newsletter. You get a banner. That's also a way. It's expensive, but like there's also a way to do thought leadership.
Yeah.
And they guarantee eyeballs, so it's good.
You mentioned something which is like you said, is expensive. And I think that especially for like owners, for example, or decision makers at smaller companies, I think it's constantly hard to prove the return on investment of
100%.
So what I'm curious to hear from you is like, what's the business case behind, something like that? For example, like buying your place on a publication, or anything else that you can think of. And the question related to that is like, does it make sense if it's something isolated, or does it need to be part of more of an ongoing tactic?
It needs to be, in any case, it needs to be part of like a larger ongoing tactic, which would be like a marketing plan, right? Yeah, I mean, definitely. It's not like, oh crap, we should just buy buy some room in Finextra's like newsletter or whatever. That's kind of like, I mean, it's good, but you'll spend I don't know how much it is, but you'll spend the money, and it will best use of your time or your efforts. But I would say, yeah, integration and marketing strategy. If you're a small company with these sort of like bought things, you need to like really assure your audience.
So the question was really
buy sort of marketing from.
How buying your PR presence is important for SMEs.
It can be. I think I don't know, because it deals with like how the media landscape's going, and it's getting harder and harder to get like organic traffic, right? To whatever you're doing, right? Whether that's like an Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. Most of the stuff I do is B2B, so it's basically LinkedIn, right? Or even on your own blog. So like I think it's, with the way things are going in terms of media and advertisement, it's going to, and this is actually something at my last agency that my last boss, Richard Neve, had a really good perspective on. And he really enlightened me on this, because the way, so we have like, you have your media, your sort of your own channels. That's whatever you have is your company, like whatever those are, whatever you decide they are. It's definitely a website and then some social channels, right? You have those, but since it's hard to get organic reach, right? It's getting really hard. You can people think, I'll throw some advertising on LinkedIn, or I'll throw some money behind Google, but that means you need to have very like sort of targeted, segmented people that you want. So that's difficult. So another option would be, of course, is, paying a publication, right? But the thing is, it's going to be harder and harder to get organic things in the future, I think, especially with AI coming in. And the easiest way, an easy way, but it costs money to do that, is through like these paid things with these platforms, because they guarantee you eyeballs, right? So they said like, oh, okay, we'll put in our newsletter and we guarantee you 50,000 views or whatever, So then you can go to your marketing manager, or you can say like, look, we got 50,000 off of this, right? Off of this blog or this banner that links to something. So the easiest thing, and it's getting increasingly harder to just pitch media with like ideas, and they accept your piece, right? It's really, really hard to pitch the Financial Times or like, Barron's or anything and get your piece in there, right? A lot of everything. The thing is, basically everything in like sort of traditional media is going to pay it anyway. So it's gonna keep getting harder. So it may be worth it because of that.
So what I hear you saying is the fact that, say, organic traffic and like free traffic is getting more and more.
It's hard
and harder, and that's definitely true. So having paid ads or paid content is like one necessary thing that you need to add to the blend.
I think it's something,
the one-off, but rather as an ongoing strategy.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, and it may be overlooked because of the price. But if you know, like, this is where your people are. I
Hmm.
know they're like, I'm a fintech, small fintech, I don't know, AI company. I can get on Sifted, right? I can get an article and maybe some banners in a newspaper. It'll cost me, a lot. But like I get the eyeballs, right? But then if I put it out on my blog and then I put it on LinkedIn and it's like 100 people viewed it, right? And then you're like,
Um,
shit.
is that say that you're helping a small fintech or, for example, a small consultancy firm? Is there anything that you recommend when it comes to, say, how much of your presence should you buy on paid media?
I would say again, I would say like start with like, especially with media, like if you're getting started, like posting consistently and seeing how that does, like builds your presence. And before I would actually do pay media for marketing, I would find out like who I know or who your marketing person knows or whoever you hire to do marketing knows, how much access they have in that industry to, publications or just sort of like also influencers, because influencers are big and kind of part of the, I guess, B2C-ification of B2B. Influencers are, when we have them in financial services too, So I check with them first to see like if they know people that have like these platforms like you or like, a big podcast, been influencer with a podcast that you can maybe get on that won't cost you anything first, and then you can combine that with some paid, and then you can create some momentum for yourself. So I think I tried to like go that way before I would go straight to like paid, paying like a publication.
Okay, so the first part, what you're recommending SMEs doing is that for the first part, there is a outreach to people who already have a platform, already have visibility, and see if you can latch onto that.
Yeah, like leverage that. Like I did the podcast example because podcasting is so popular, and most of the companies I talk to at the PR firm or even now, like everyone's like, oh, we're thinking about starting our own podcast, and it's like, okay, it could be a good idea, but if I don't like, because for us as marketers, our job is to sort of tease out what a company get to what distinguish between what a company says they need and what they need and try to like execute on what they actually need, right? And a lot of the times is they say like, oh, I want my own podcast, and I go, okay, but like that, I mean, you can do it cheaply with like Riverside. Like you can do it like this. You don't have to have like the whole couch set up and like the roadcaster and the microphones. You know what I mean? You don't have and the lights. You don't have to do all of that. But I mean, it's nice, but it's not necessary. I always say like, okay, that's nice, but hey, say maybe I know these people. They have a podcast. I know the producer, so I can call the producer up or email them and to see if I can slot you in on that, right? And that's like, and that already has an established thing. And you also get the sort of, it's also kind of like what do you call it? It's always nice when you're at somebody's platform that's already established, right? Because that's always kind of like, hey, they know what they're doing if they're on, I don't know, like in the Netherlands, like Leaders in Finance or something like that, right? Or
Yeah,
like, you're on
yeah,
Breaking
absolutely.
Banks or you're on yeah. So that it's kind of like they have the crowd, they have the listeners, and if your listeners are if your customers are their listeners, they're like, oh, you were on that? Oh, that's great. Oh, you must be doing big things. I mean, when it's just like you and two other programmers, right? So I'd
You're
say
saying
that,
it very well. So it actually gives you not only eyeballs but also credibility. The fact that you can
yeah,
leverage someone else's audience, someone else's credibility. And the
yeah,
other thing that you
100%.
heard before, I just want to kind of enucleate it, is that so you mentioned that organic traffic on one side gets more and more expensive. But paradoxically, the tools that you need to get organic traffic get cheaper and cheaper. Because then nowadays, well, that's really the example, right? Like you can do podcasts
Yeah,
for really a few quid per
yeah, you
month.
can.
So it's yeah,
True.
it's a bit of a strange paradox. Elliot, before we wrap this up, I wanted to ask you one thing. So we mentioned the importance of actually traffic, eyeball attention, which is where everything starts. What would you say are the channels that are more effective for, especially for SMEs to get attention in B2B, which is where you have experience?
LinkedIn, 100%. Like that should be your focus on sort
That
of
should be your focus.
non-website channels are LinkedIn.
Okay, got it.
Definitely, 100%.
Yeah, because often when using LinkedIn, I've been having the feeling of talking always to the same audience. So how can LinkedIn help you also grow your audience? Or is it like, does it serve a different purpose?
No, of course. No, LinkedIn's like any other social media program. It's also about there's like the output, what you say about your company and what other companies say about you, right? There's also the sort of like the partnership things, other people tagging you, but it's also like commenting on other companies' posts, like engaging, like being part of the conversation. Or if there are like sort of industry groups, because you have like the LinkedIn marketers group, or like the LinkedIn is participating in those too. I think that's what people also forget about these things. It's not just like I'm putting out things and then I'm just like pushing them out and then like, let's see how the post does, but it's like, how much do you engage the platform, right? There's a marketers things. Do I put my stuff in the marketing thing? But I'm in payments, so there's a big group, started by Rick Kuckelberg's Innovation and Payments, right? So like there's a lot of information there. So do I, as a company, are we participating in that, right? That'll all help your visibility on the channel. So it's not just like a posting and that's it, but getting your partners to post, right? If you're, especially in B2B software, like it's both like it's active as in posting, but it's also like, hey, I did a partnership with so and so. Okay, then they post. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, look, it's a free recommendation, right? Like you put that on your channel, like, oh, so glad to have Federico and blah 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 and his company on the thing, and where you write the sort of they write themselves actually, and when people start seeing that, because then you engage someone else's audience as well, right?
Nice.
You see the connection. You're part of the ecosystem, and they see that you're doing things, right? Because what matters is for B2B is like you want to essentially like sell to other companies, and when they see you're active with other companies.
So your recommendation is really like to be on LinkedIn and to use it as a platform, not just to post things for yourself and just on your own wall, but also to be active and engage with other groups, because that's actually what gives you visibility.
Yeah, other groups or other industry goings on. I think that's a sort of thing that is often missed, is the sort of the proactive participation in the platform and not just on your page.
Hey, Elliot, this has been a great conversation so far. So I really want to thank you for your time. What's the best way for people to get to know more about yourself and stay in touch?
Finding me on LinkedIn, my profile on LinkedIn. Elliot,
Which is actually
definitely, exactly,
said, right?
Exactly, yeah. That's the name of the game. So yeah, LinkedIn's the way to best get in touch with me, and you can send me a way to say.
So people can look for Elliot Lyons on LinkedIn, and they will find you there.
Yes, DM or PM, or I don't know what the people are calling it now, but like you type the message thing,
they will find you. Thanks a lot, Elliot. Elliot, it has been great having you here. You shared a lot in terms of like a visibility suggestion for SME, especially B2B. Hope to see you soon.
Hey, thanks, Federico.